what began as a coal and steel federation amongst a small group of core countries, then became a market, then became an economic community, now is a union and putatively will be a state, despite these reverses which may be terminal, at least in the initial phase, because they've really been set back. And you can argue, why have liberal idealists throughout Europe wanted this project so much? Because it's quite obvious that even in the core countries like France and the Netherlands, and even West Germany, now the Federal Republic of a United Germany, after the collapse of the communist statehood in the East, there were significant proportions of all of their populations that never wanted to merge their societies in to this supra-state above the level of the existing nation-states. The populations of Europe have always been sullen and resistant to this project, and it's been pushed and pushed again by a small, residual liberal elite that increasingly on issue after issue is out of step with the bulk of the population in Western societies. We've got 25 European peoples in this union now, and it's noticeable that every time they have a real vote on it, where it's primal, where it's yes or no, do you want to go further in, or do you want to stay where you are, or do you want to go back a bit towards where you were before we went in? People say no. The reason liberals want to draw us together into this project, as one of many, is they have ideas about how we should live and how society should be organised, of which this is one phalanx, this is one area. They believe that the multiracial and multicultural society that's been created here since the Nationality Act of 48 is a morally good thing. They believe the nation-state is a bad thing up to a point, and it needs to be mitigated, it needs to be doused down, it needs to be ameliorated. Patriotism is something that's not entirely controllable, is dangerous, is tribal, leads in their view to conflict. You must batten it down a bit, and one of the ways in which you do it is you have a structure put on top of it, consisting of treaties and constitutional statehoods that form a federation, a putative United States of Europe beyond the existing nation-states. There is a version in North America of the European Union, and it's called NAFTA. And this is Mexico and Canada and the United States of America in one block. And as you look around the world, you see there's one in Southeast Asia involving putatively Australasia. There's one, although it's a basket case, about which Bob Geldof goes on a great deal, in Africa. There's one in Latin America, including North America, called the Organization of American States, beyond NAFTA. Liberals have this belief that groups of states should come together across the world in federations that build up into each other like Russian dolls over time. And the ultimate crucible and model for this meddling is the United Nations, which was set up immediately after the Second World War. And putatively in all of these structures, no matter how hesitant and haphazard it is, you have an idea of world governance. Only fanatical liberals want any sort of world government, and they're a tiny strand even within liberalism per se. But liberals believe that indigenous people should not be allowed to sort things out for themselves. They believe in small, concealed, fiscal and technocratic groups at the top of world and dominion structures who tell peoples what to do, who merge them into other groups, who deny the constitutional integrity of their own states, and who pursue ideas of universal brotherhood and universal humanity through these structures. Most of the time, people say that this is an impossible dream, and even liberals themselves believe that, many of them, the more practical and realistic ones, who just want to have their stamps in the trough and want to get elected every 4 or 5 years in mainstream Western societies. But behind this pressure for the UN to meddle in Africa, for America to intervene in the Middle East, for liberal democracies to be set up all over the world, for countries like Syria and Iran to be disprivileged, but others like post-invasion Iraq to be boosted, for the European Union to vote for a constitution, there is a raft of opinion which says there's only one race, the human race. There's only one type of person, a person with humanist values. There's only one type of economics that's possible, liberal capitalism broadly along the American line. There's only one foreign policy that's possible, and that's to intervene to get rid of dictatorial regimes, that American power that has propped up all sorts of dictatorial regimes in the Caribbean and Latin America for years doesn't like. And there's this drift which has been going on since 1945, which excluded the Soviet bloc until the collapse of communism in the East, and which now doesn't really have, apart from residual national feeling amongst all peoples and groups, and Islamists actually, any counterbalance in the world. And this is why the United States has the biggest constellation of military and economic power that the world has ever seen in our species. This is why American Secretaries of State go round the world pushing and pulling and telling other countries and other societies and other peoples what they should be doing, how they should be behaving, how they should run their economies internally, what sort of diplomacy they should have, and who, in turn, they should let into their societies. It's not that it all goes together and it's a neat plan which is worked out to the last dot and tittle and is sort of conspiratorial in an overarching way. It's, in my opinion, a process. It's a pushing of certain ideas which ultimately says you can't really have your own country because you can't be trusted to have it.